Just like Age of Empires. Age of Empires 2 is another historical real-time strategy developed by Ensemble Studios in 1999, while Microsoft is still the key publisher for the game. Age of Empires 2 brings new improvements to the game formula by adding army formations to organize troops for movements, an in-game tech tree to view the specs of each civilization you'll be playing in before entering a new match. Other additions include toggling your army's positions of when they should be defensive, aggressive, or stand down and not attack, when enemies are nearby, or when you are scouting the area on the map. The developers at Ensemble Studios nailed the balance between the civilizations and strategic gameplay. Age of Empires 2's menu features a more thematically designed layout and is one of my favorite menus in any game I have played. The game takes place in the medieval times. The main menu is like you are taking a stroll in a village. The campaign menu was similar to opening a book filled with maps, and each campaign would take place in a specific part of the world. Age of Empires 2 is the first game in the series to feature voice acting. Each campaign you will play features its own voice actors, versus filling every campaign with the same voice actor.
February 19, Army Camp near Vaucouleurs. This morning I awoke to visions of fire and steel. These nightmares come more often now that I have seen my beloved France eaten away in years of war. I wandered through camp, ignoring the new snowfall, but observing the wounds and weariness of every soldier under my command, observing the desperation in their eyes. It was then that I first saw the girl. She told us that her name was Jeanne. She told us she was but a peasant who did not know how to ride or fight. She told us that she intended to rescue France. The darkness lifted from the men's souls. Her voice rang with conviction, and we drank in her every word. I may have lost my faith, but Jeanne has not lost hers, and that is enough for me. Jeanne has asked our ragged band of soldiers to take her to Chinon, where the rightful ruler of France, the Dauphin, hides from his foes. The war-torn land between is infested with enemy marauders, and we will lose many men. Death is by now an old companion, but for Jean, we will face it again.
Age of Empires 2 contains campaigns set in the medieval times. The first campaign, William Wallace Learning Campaign, is one of my favorites, like how Age of Empires 1's tutorial takes place in Egypt. Here we are in Scotland.
The English are terrorizing all of Scotland, and it's time for us to fight back.
And are going to defeat the British from taking over the land of the Scots.
The outpost is destroyed. That should slow the English raids. Keep following the path to the village.
Tall.
Home sweet home. But wait, the English are angry that you destroyed their outpost. They're coming to attack your village. Don't panic. Just click your soldiers and right-click the red English soldiers to attack. Defeat the enemy soldiers, and you will have won your first battle. Good job! Now you know how to fight back against the English.
One of the things that I like about this tutorial is that you learn the basics one step at a time, but fill in a campaign-like narrative that works as a tutorial and a historical lesson.
We are without a leader. The dead King of Scotland has no heir. War creeps in from the south, where Edward Longshanks, the avaricious king of England, has returned from successful campaigns to conquer Wales and France. As Longshanks turns his attention to Scotland, the shadow of fear settles across the Highlands. The English have thousands of Welsh longbowmen, hundreds of knights on horseback, and dozens of siege weapons. We Scottish have a rabble of untrained soldiers who do not even know how to march in a straight line. We must act soon if we have any chance of resistance. We need to forge an army by any means necessary.
The William Wallace campaign gives you the full experience from the start, with the introduction and then the gameplay. The campaign starts out by showing you how to move your armies, gather resources, and then create an empire. As you are leading the Scots, you will have to battle it out against the British Empire, led by Edward Longshanks, known as the Hammer of the Scots. One of the best campaign chapters in the William Wallace campaign would be the Battle of Falkirk. You start out by defending yourself, then receiving troops from William Wallace to lead an attack on the British forts.
The English castle at Falkirk is no more. The English pretensions in Scotland are surely at an end. The forces of Wallace are triumphant.
One of my favorite things to do in this campaign is to replay the chapter. I could gather all the resources, not destroy everything, and leave their market standing so I could use the trading carts to steal their gold. That would enable me to use an infinite supply of gold on better tech upgrades. I would use these upgrades on my armies to destroy the castle to end the campaign. Outside of the William Wallace campaign, I was able to discover other campaigns that were available. Some of these campaigns let you take part in playing as Joan of Arc in the 100 Years' War between Great Britain and France.
Another glorious loss for France. I hope you really can turn the tide of this war, Joan of Arc.
Another campaign that is my favorite is Barbarossa.
So, you have come to hear the tale of Frederick Barbarossa. Better order us another round. Maybe 3. You see, it is a great tale. But then again, everything about the man was great. Barbarossa was a man of great appetites, great ambitions, and a great red beard. But the question you want to know is, was that enough? Is the will of one man enough to forge an empire? For there was no Holy Roman Empire at that time, only a gaggle of quarreling city-states. These dubiously loyal princedoms were more interested in a loose confederation than a unified empire. But Barbarossa, he believed that he was the emperor by will of God, and he intended to bring the Holy Roman Empire back to its former glory. If that meant crushing all of the German princes, well, so be it.
Where you help Frederick Barbarossa work his way as the emperor in the buildup of the Holy Roman Empire in Germania, along with other campaigns where you embark an invasion in Eurasia as Genghis Khan.
Behold, the horde of Genghis Khan approaches.
You men, you will visit each of the outlying tribes. You must convince as many as you can to join our glorious army. But beware the Karakitai, they are without honor.
And defend the Holy Land as Saladin.
Egypt. A month since I entered the Holy Land. I was in a foreign land, and I was dying. I wandered the cold desert for 4 nights before the horse archers found me. I had abandoned my mount to the vultures and my armor to the heat of the day. As a knight, I was not much of a threat to them. I thought these men were Turks, come to toy with their prey. But when I could distinguish the riders from the blur of mirage, I saw that they were Saracens, the rulers of the Middle East. I had ridden to the Holy Land with the Crusaders from France and Normandy, so I was by all rights these Saracens' enemy. Yet they gave me water and a spindly horse, and led me back to their leader. And that was how I met Saladin. The paintings in Europe show Saladin as demonic, barbarian. Yet he is more chivalrous than any knight I'd met before, and prefers the palaces of Damascus to slaughtering Normans in the desert. I had not expected hospitality from Saracens. We Normans execute any armed Arab we capture, but Saladin left me free to explore his camp. Perhaps he wants an objective observer to chronicle the prodigious bloodshed ahead. Saladin's army is heading south to Egypt to reinforce Cairo. Egypt is a tempting prize for the Crusaders. She is fabulously wealthy, yet governed by an ineffectual fool. Before my capture, I was en route to join in the Crusaders' assault on Egypt. It is a bitter irony that now I shall view the contest from the enemy camp. So it was that I found myself less than 100 miles from the Dead Sea in the company of my enemies.
As for goodies, the History tab has been expanded in its own page, like a history book, giving you history of each civilization that is available in the time period. A great way to read through the manuscripts if you really enjoy history.
Ja.
Whenever I take a break or finish all the campaigns, I would play the skirmish-based modes. Some of these modes all came from Age of Empires, like Random Map and Deathmatch.
Fatal!
While a new one I really liked is Regicide. Regicide added a particular cautionary design by making it so that if your king dies, it's game over. I enjoyed my time in the Age of Kings. Next it was time to become a conqueror in the next expansion. The Conquerors expansion added new campaigns and new civilizations, along with what I would say is one of my favorite main menu designs and music to go along with it. Some of the campaigns in the Conquerors expansion became one of my favorites, like Montezuma.
Passed down to you by Cuauhtémoc, Eagle Warrior of Tenochtitlan. An omen appeared above the forest, the shape of an ear of corn, but blazing like daybreak. It seemed to bleed fire, drop by drop, like a wound in the sky. I am a warrior, not a priest, and knew not what to make of such a sign. I consulted with the seers and magicians to see if another great war was coming, but they answered only in riddles. The gods want more sacrifice, was their answer. That was always their answer. Much of our empire of rainforests and volcanoes has been conquered in the name of sacrifice. The magicians tell us that we must make a sacrifice every single day for the sun to continue to rise. It took the relay teams 2 full days to carry my message the 200 miles to our city of Tenochtitlan. After 2 more days, my uncle, Montezuma, Emperor of the Aztecs, sent his reply. Montezuma's priests foretold that the god Quetzalcoatl might soon return from his long exile. How else to explain the omen? Montezuma ordered my warriors to increase their efforts to consolidate the rainforest between our lands and those of our enemies. We must establish control over 4 shrines that are sacred to Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent. Because the Aztec Empire is mighty and constantly expands, we have made many enemies. We must defend these shrines from our enemies in order to prepare for Quetzalcoatl's eventual return.
And other campaigns from a pack called the Battle of the Conquerors. My favorites from this pack are Vinland Saga and Hastings.
Mercenaries and Norman knights look dubiously at the ships that wobble in the black, fog-choked sea. What man is this Duke William to put so many horses on leaky transports? William ignores their questioning glances and stares across the channel in the direction of England. Edward the Confessor is dead, and now 3 men claim rulership of England. Harold the Saxon sits on the English throne, and even now hastens to fortify his shores against 2 invasions. Harold Hardrada, king of Denmark and Norway, sends Vikings from the north, as William invades from the south. The outcome of this 3-way conflict is as murky as the fog that shrouds the English Channel. Harold the Saxon's Huscarls are professional soldiers, not mercenaries. William's only chance of defeating them is to use heavy cavalry, but to do so, he must first get all of these horses onto these unreliable boats. The future of England is about to be decided.
Conquerors expansion offered more campaign content than the Age of Kings, which gave me more years of playtime. Even replaying the content to see what other strategies I could do added more playtime in the number of years I would keep playing the game. The Conquerors expansion did expand the number of game modes you can play in a standard skirmish. You could be able to play a King of the Hill, Wonder Race, or Defend the Wonder. Along with a turbo version of Random Map, which speeds up the game speed. In 2010, I decided to fiddle around with the scenario editor for both Age of Empires 1 and 2. I was able to create my own maps and had some other things to do that were quite playful to do, like placing down so many units to attack other units, creating my own battle simulator type mode but within the editor itself. Some parts of the editor feature seeds, which generated randomly generated map layouts of any kind, or it can generate a map of any type you choose. I would later learn the official term procedural generation from another genre called roguelike. While I wish I were to have these maps due to the hard drive being fried on the first computer I played Age of Empires on, I was able to recreate one of them from memory when I was able to look at it before the hard drive stopped working. The scenario editor for Age of Empires 1 and 2 introduced me to level design. Sometimes I discover units that are not from the period the game takes place in. In 2014, I gained a new tutor to help me out with school. When we were both on break, I showed him my favorite games, Age of Empires 1 and 2. One thing I thought was cool was that he also played the game in his childhood, and showed me something I had no idea existed in the game, which made it hilarious. Pressing the enter key and typing in, "How do you turn this on?" spawned a Shelby Cobra. That had built-in guns to shoot at any enemy or even a building. It was also faster than any soldier in the game.
You can then use the gold to buy what you need.
Along with other cheat codes where you could speed up the game, even more by making gathering and building processes last a second. You can even take control of the wildlife, called natural wonders. Although this would cause you to lose control of your civilization in the game, making that civilization your enemy. Around that time, I discovered Age of Empires 1 had cheat codes. One of my favorites was the Photon Man, an astronaut that had a laser rifle that could decimate a whole battlefield in a few seconds. Another cheat code I liked was the St. Francis cheat code. Just type in convert this. You have what looks like an ordinary monk that has spawned. But instead of converting the enemy with the holy powers of the monk, St. Francis turns that holy power into a lightning bolt. I really enjoyed Age of Empires 2, but I played Age of Empires 1 more. The only reason is because the copy of Age of Empires 2 I owned didn't come with the music. Of course, Age of Empires 2 had music, but only in the intro. The main menu. The campaign narrative scenes.
A blue wolf took as his spouse a fallow doe. They settled at the head of the Onan River to raise their offspring, and there were born the Mongols. So begins my life's work, the secret history of the Mongols. I have been selected to compose this epic because great events are about to take place. We are going to leave Mongolia. I have lived always on this frigid, dry, and endless steppe. The tribes here squabble like vultures fighting over the desiccated corpse of a marmot. We fight over limited resources, scarce water, few trees.
And the scoreboard for winning and losing. The game itself didn't have any background music, which is why I liked Age of Empires 1 more. There was a sense of musical rhythm in Age of Empires 1 that really helped with strategical thinking. While in Age of Empires 2, things felt quiet unless you are near your gatherers or a battle is going on. Even in the settings, there is a music option. Turning it up to the max didn't help, but I wasn't sure if this was made by design, or the game originally didn't have background music. In the year 2019, I enjoyed Age of Empires Definitive Edition. I was thinking about buying Age of Empires 2 HD Edition, which came out in 2013. However, I went on vacation to the beach, talked to some online friends in Discord, and they had the idea of playing a drinking game when watching the XO19 game showcase. And the rules were that we could only drink water or soda. Every time we saw a game that was announced as an exclusive to Xbox, we would drink that said soda or water. I chose water, and the rest chose a variety of sodas. We all had fun until I spotted what looked like the art for Age of Empires 2. The other friends thought this was an Xbox exclusive from the beginning of the video, and I said, no, this is Age of Empires 2, a PC exclusive. I only came to that realization from the art and when the trailer narrator said,
Do you remember a time when armies were built and powerful cities collapsed? When the smallest of choices echoed through the pages of history. It was an age of empires.
Yay? Chopper.
Yay? Equilin.
The Definitive Edition does include all the campaigns from the original and HD Edition. I had nothing to worry about since I was able to experience all the campaigns that weren't in the original and including a new expansion that released in the Definitive Edition called The Last Cons. However, I will point out that the launch trailer gave me a nostalgic feeling at the beginning as it showed kids playing the original on CRT monitors. I used to play the original Age of Empires 1 and 2 on a CRT monitor until the tubes were blown a few years later. I would discover YouTubers for Age of Empires 2 such as Spirit of the Law.
In terms of losses. Again, for a little context, Halberdiers in this sort of matchup gets something pretty similar.
And many others that made Age of Empires 2 content.
Woodline, but he can get in on the stone. 2 scouts.
Or played the game at a competitive level. The beginning parts of Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition were amazing. They kept the main menu design very similar, the main menu music was updated, but sounded similar. The campaign menu was like opening a history book. In terms of playing the game itself, it was amazing. I got to hear the game's music for the first time. And I liked it more than the music from Age of Empires 1. The narration for the campaigns is different, like different voice actors.
We are without a leader. The dead King of Scotland has no heir. War creeps in from the south. What Edward Longshanks, the avaricious King of England, has returned from successful campaigns in Wales and France. As Longshanks turns his attention to Scotland, the shadow of fear settles across the Highlands. The English have thousands of Welsh longbowmen, hundreds of knights on horseback, and dozens of siege weapons. We Scottish have a rabble of untrained soldiers who do not even know how to march in a straight line. We must act soon. If we're to have any chance of resistance, we need to forge an army by any means necessary.
I really like the authenticity and graphics. You could tell there was a much higher attention to visual clarity. The Definitive Edition later included features that would increase the accessibility of the game, such as Auto Scout, which used the game's AI to scout for you, versus manually scouting the land yourself, while playing a campaign or a multiplayer match.
Our arrangement was with the Blader. I will not turn the captives over to Attila. You must take them by force.
As for multiplayer, I am not that great when playing with other players in ranked or custom lobbies.
Yeah.
So it seems like you are doing a lot better than me in managing an army. But I do have fun with family members and friends in either multiplayer skirmishes or co-op campaigns.
Oh yeah, I see you marching with your giant army.
Yeah.
Just coming into wreck. Yeah. Yeah. Ooh. Oh wait, that's yours. And it's game, set, and match. Now. Yes, there we go. And I just come in to help. Just coming helping with the cleanup.
William the Conqueror, King of England.
And both boars. Do not forget to keep training villagers.
A new tutorial has been added, but made specifically for multiplayer. This new tutorial is called The Art of War, which gives you several missions to play. Each mission consists of replayable objectives. You need to replicate as it teaches you the strategies that professional RTS players use, or in this case, professional Age of Empires 2 players.
Early attacks, also called rushes, are often a cat-and-mouse game. You can harass the enemy economy by sending military units to attack enemy villagers. If the villagers fight back, or if enemy soldiers arrive, your raiders should retreat and seek better opportunities. Try to pick off any weak or separated villager instead of going for large groups. That way, you will do the most damage while sustaining the least losses. Do not chase villagers when they are too close to their town center. You will risk losing several units to the arrows that it shoots. Keep an eye on your own economy while you attack the enemy. You must keep collecting more resources and training villagers so you can continue to train new soldiers, upgrade your military, and finally advance to the next age yourself. The best of luck to you.
In historical reference, The Art of War was written by Sun Tzu, a Chinese military strategist. In the Art of War tutorial, there's a narrator who is narrating as Sun Tzu, which fits for the tutorial.
Before you can lead an army into battle, you must first learn the 9 principles of the art of war, written by the famous warrior and philosopher Sun Tzu. His teachings come to us from ancient books, and his infinite wisdom about warfare and military tactics still apply to this day. I will guide you and teach you these most important lessons, Commander. Listen very well.
When it came to downloading mods for games, you would either have to go to a site like ModDB or Steam Workshop to download mods. You would have to restart the game for the mods to work, but Age of Empires 2 Defensive Edition introduced its own mod loader built in the game. The one thing I liked was that when you download a mod in the mod loader, you don't have to restart the game. It's already loaded into Age of Empires 2 Defensive Edition. Just like the original games, the campaigns would have this number to tell you which campaign to play in order or show you the total amount in the campaign set. In the Defensive Edition, all the campaigns are scattered around with several swords based on difficulty. You can choose which order you want to play the campaign or click on the bookmark to access another region of the world filled with other campaigns. You can use the mod loader to download community-created campaigns and access them in the custom campaign section or create your own. Even though I knew I had to replay the campaigns, I didn't mind that. I learned they updated the AI in this version of Age of Empires 2. I learned that the original AI would cheat by being able to see the entire map while you couldn't be able to see due to the fog of war. In some circumstances, and mostly in the hardest difficulty area for AI, the AI would have infinite resources, while you only have resources based on what the map gave you. Even though the hard AI will have infinite resources, they will still gather resources, which may frustrate you as you won't have all the resources on the map. Being able to experience the new AI in the campaigns made my playtime sessions longer and more memorable, since the AI uses strategical moves that players would use. This makes it more interesting as you feel like you are playing with a player even offline. Originally, the last cons for Age of Empires 2 Defensive Edition was going to be the last expansion for the game. However, that wasn't the case. The game received more expansions due to how Age of Empires 2 Defensive Edition succeeded. A year later, the Lords of the West expansion was announced, and it would be adding 2 new civilizations and 3 new fully voiced campaigns. One of the campaigns I really liked from this expansion was the Edward Longshanks campaign. That may sound familiar since Edward Longshanks was in the William Wallace campaign. The most interesting part in this campaign is that you take part in a younger and more cowardice Edward Longshanks and see how he becomes what we know him as the Hammer of the Scots.
The Scots did not take their humbling well. A year after Balliol's defeat, they rallied around the fiery knight, William Wallace, and poured out of the Highlands like rabid wolves. Wallace was said to be a 7-foot-tall giant, who lopped off the heads of horses and men with a 5.5-foot sword. A barbaric match for my own ferocious father. After a string of unexpected victories, Wallace's rebels were scattered at the Battle of Falkirk and forced into hiding. Like a vengeful spectre, he continued to harry English troops and convoys from the shadows. Undaunted, Edward and his commander, Aymer de Valence, approached Stirling Castle. Accompanying them was Robert the Bruce, a Scottish lord sworn to Edward, but known to covet the Scottish crown. Keep your friends close, but your enemies closer, as the ancient adage goes. Taking after his famed predecessor, Richard the Lionheart, he ordered the construction of a massive set of trebuchets near the walls of Stirling. His warning to the defenders was simple and dreadful. Surrender, or faced bombardment more ferocious than a reign of hellfire and brimstone.
Later, I learned that the expansions would usually release 2 civilizations. They would use an existing civ from the Age of Empires 2 civilization roster. The next expansion would be Dawn of the Dukes, and the campaign I played was Algirdas and Kęstutis. This campaign was interesting. It takes place in Lithuania, where they are in a religious conflict with the Teutons. It was a battle of the Roman Catholic Crusades versus the pagans. Algirdas and Kęstutis campaign had something going on, as the title is named after the 2 brothers who were both kings for their country. Both shared their leadership powers for their kingdom. Normally, we only see a king and queen right beside each other in the medieval times.
You want to know how I ended up here, foreigner? You dare ask such a question, as if we were equals. Very well. I will tell you the story, my companion in misfortune. If there is one thing of which we are not deprived in this bloody dungeon, it is time. I aimed for the throne, yet I ended up in this dark, moldy prison cell. Beyond these bars lies the land of my fathers, Lithuania. Its swamps, deep forests, and raging rivers are not exactly the heart of civilization, if you ask our enemies, which makes it all the more astonishing that they have tried time and again to subjugate it. It began when some chosen ones felt called on to bring the light to Lithuania. They named themselves the Teutonic Order, and under the banner of the cross they promised deliverance, yet they brought only death and perdition. Lithuania was not easily cowed. Our ancestors learned how to fight by battling the forces of nature and the beasts of the dark primeval forests. Every one of our soldiers is steeped in that same tradition. But the more that we resisted the Crusaders and their god, the more ruthless they became. Slowly, we began to see their true faces. They called themselves holy warriors, but they were nothing more than robber knights. And 100 years of pillaging our lands had made them masters of their trade. They razed our strongholds and torched our villages. Had Grand Duke Gediminas still been alive, he would have put this mob of greedy crusaders in its place. But a devious coup ended his life and left the throne to his useless son, Eunutis. Eunutis was weak, but worse, he was divisive when the land needed unity. He turned away from our old beliefs and accepted the Christian God. As he failed to control the domestic unrest, the Grand Master of the Teutonic Order saw his chance to subjugate Lithuania for good. However, Eunutis' brothers, Algirdas and Kęstutis, refused to stand idly by as their beloved homeland fell to the cross. They exhorted the disaffected princes to dethrone Eunutis, who had barricaded himself inside of the Lithuanian capital of Vilnius.
The next expansion to come out was the Dynasties of India. The part that I thought was cool was more Indian civilizations and campaigns, since the only Indian civilizations that were available were in the American campaigns, like the Incans and Aztecs. This expansion released 3 civilizations instead of 2, which would expand the Age of Empires 2 roster even more. As long as I have been playing Age of Empires 2 Defensive Edition, it has become one of my most played games in my Steam library, yet I wanted to play the game with the original sounds and music. There's classic music and sounds mod in the mod loader for Age of Empires 2 Defensive Edition. but it didn't feel right. This time, I decided to buy Age of Empires 2 HD Edition to experience the original music and sounds with the graphics I grew up when playing the original. As I did end up replaying some of the campaigns, I was still sunk into the game like the Definitive Edition. While listening to the original music, I really liked it, and I recognized them from the Definitive Edition. While Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition is an improvement in so many ways, I forgot how bad and funny the pathfinding was when playing the HD Edition. Sometimes I even wondered to myself why I didn't get the HD edition before, as there are new expansions for the game, which are in Definitive Edition, and Steam Workshop for downloading mods. This was my way of playing Age of Empires 2 as a classic mode that Age of Empires Definitive Edition had, and Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition didn't come with. Being able to experience the complete original game with the music that I didn't experience when growing up on the original. I even discovered a pretty cool mod in the Steam Workshop for Age of Empires 2 HD called Age of Doom. Which turns Age of Empires 2 into a top-down Doom shooter. Another mod I liked is called the 256 Tech mod that allows you to infinitely add the upgrades statistically for a unit. My favorite is when my pikeman is running faster than the speed of light. As of right now, Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition released on the Xbox One and Series S and X consoles.
Okay, and here, so I just hold down A and it makes this little circle to grab things. Just selecting things and waypoints all takes a little bit longer. Like right there, like a jump back. Yeah, I don't know. It's still.
This was the first time since PlayStation 2 port was released back in 2001 from Konami.
Okay, X is how you select stuff. Yay. But that's not how you command them. Yes. Chopper. So we actually need food. Can I like hold it down? Oh, I can, just like a mouse.
In addition to Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition, released a new expansion called Return of Rome. Return of Rome brings Age of Empires 1 into Age of Empires 2, a game within the game in the sorts. The expansion does include new things such as 3 new campaigns and a new civ called the Lac Viet, which is a Vietnamese civilization. The original Age of Empires campaigns are slowly coming into the expansion for Age of Empires 2. One of the things that makes this an upgrade for Age of Empires is that it will use mechanics from Age of Empires 2, such as garrisoning of units, army formations, and better pathfinding. Hopefully more improvements when bringing it over to Age of Empires 2. To me, this makes Return of Rome a much more improved version of Age of Empires Defensive Edition. Age of Empires Defensive Edition was built around the classic mode to keep the gameplay and mechanical feel of the game the same as the original experience. However, this harmed Age of Empires Defensive Edition from adding new content and features to the game, as new things would break classic mode. I can see others playing Age of Empires Defensive Edition for the original feel, but the idea of having more content would have to be either downloading or making scenarios from Age of Empires Defensive Edition, or if you don't know how to do this, you can get the Return of Rome expansion for an updated Age of Empires Defensive Edition experience.
Our Emperor needs us. Pack your things and march on the double.
Well done. I see that you are a man to be counted upon, Trajan.
In Return of Rome, one of the new campaigns I tried was Sargon of Akkad.
The ways of the gods are incomprehensible. Far more predictable is the path walked by a man who considers himself a god. So too it was for Sargon, the greatest conqueror Mesopotamia has ever known. Like the legendary shepherd that founded our great city, Sargon seemed to have descended from heaven a grown man, crafted by the gods to rule the world. But while his true origins remain a mystery, his earthly story began here, in Kish, a place so beautiful that even the lustrous words of the poets cannot do it justice. Back when I, Ushar, was still a man of youthful strength, Kish was ruled by Urza-Baba. If the gods had molded Sargon from clouds and ether, Urza-Baba was made from common clay. Nothing about him was exceptional, save for his fondness for fine food, extravagant clothes, and luxurious wine. Urza-Baba had appointed Sargon as his cupbearer, and the shy, unassuming adolescent served him wine and kept him company in many a lonely hour. Yet, unbeknownst to the king, Sargon was plagued by a strange, recurring dream. Ishtar, the goddess of war, appeared to Sargon in his sleep and promised him extraordinary things. One day, she said, he would be king not only of Kish, but of all the land between the Euphrates and the Tigris. Not realizing the weight of his words, Sargon told his master of the dream, and the king turned pale. Had the boy who served him every day truly been chosen by the goddess of war? Urza-Baba could not allow this prophecy to come true. He banished Sargon to the desert, and in doing so, he convinced Sargon that the goddess had spoken truly. Yet banishment was not enough for the frightened king. He soon sent Kish's most vigorous warriors to ambush his former confidant among the dunes. I was one of those men. As a smith, I was the strongest, and when Urza-Baba ordered me to swap my hammer for a sword, I accepted, but not without hesitation. By now, the tale of the banished servant and his dreams had spread far beyond the royal palace. Many who suffered under Urza-Baba's rule saw Sargon as a savior. When I finally caught up with him at a remote well, he was resting in the shade. I left my sword in its scabbard and faced a man who showed no fear. In his mind, he was no longer a simple servant. He was indeed Ishtar's chosen one.
Mirza Baba has sent assassins to kill me? How would you know that if you are not one of them yourself?
You are perceptive, Sargon. I understand why Urza Baba fears you so much. But there is no time to talk. Let me prove my loyalty to you.
This campaign lets you play as the Sumerians during the birth of the civilization of Mesopotamia. I have studied about this place in both middle school and college, although I don't think I ever learned about Sargon. Sargon was a great leader of his people and was a great conqueror of all the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Sargon was under the influence of Ishtar, the goddess of war. This led him to overthrow the current ruler of Mesopotamia and allowed him to gather his troops to conquer other territories.
The taste of death is upon my lips! All is lost!
As we entered the royal palace in Kish, I swelled with joy and pride. Sargon had triumphed, and it seemed that this man, blessed by Ishtar, was truly invincible. Yet in my quiet moments, I wondered if it would ever have come to this if Urza Baba had not expelled Sargon. Had we fulfilled a prophecy? Or had a simple dream become prophecy, only after the fearful king sealed his own fate? Dreams and oracles, visions and prophecies, it seems that these mysterious forces can be as dangerous to those who believe in them as they are to those who ignore them.
Even at the end, rulers can have a side of ego and power. Sargon crowned himself as a god, and others worshipped him. But even mortals can't live forever, and someone took his place to make Mesopotamia a better place from all the destruction that happened.
Can a mortal being of flesh and blood become a god? The answer is no. No matter how much power a man attains, anyone who towers too far above others is doomed to fall in the end. Sargon was the king of kings, the most powerful man that had ever walked the earth. His empire, the first that mankind had ever seen. In the temples, Sargon had replaced the statues of the gods with statues of himself. And now, truly believed that he was divine. Yet I had seen him bleed. I sought him out after the sack of Subartu, only to find him standing atop a mountain of gold and corpses, precious stones passing through his fingers. He did not listen when I told him that this madness had to end. Once, I left my sword in its scabbard to spare the man who would be my king. But things were different this time. This was no man standing in front of me. No deity. It was an evil demon from the underworld, striding the earth to claim the souls of the innocent. I then remembered the prophetic words. The blood of the innocent will be paid for by the blood of the one. I plunged my blade deep into Sargon's chest. As he stared at me with wide eyes, a strange, wicked smile appeared on his face. Even in the face of death, Sargon never ceased believing in his own immortality. I have no such delusions. As old age withers my once supple frame, I welcome the journey to the afterlife, satisfied that no more innocent blood will be spilled in the name of this false god. Yet, I fear Sargon's legacy. The vices of power and a desire for divinity can inspire grim changes in even the most noble of men. I can only pray that for every haughty Sargon, there will be a humble Ushar, guided not by delusions of grandeur, but by a simple conscience of what is right and what is wrong.
At the time of working on this review, 2 new expansions released for Age of Empires 2 Defensive Edition. The new expansions are the Mountain Royals and Victors and Vanquished. The Mountain Royals brought over 2 new civilizations and 3 new campaigns for Age of Empires 2. I don't have much to say other than that I really like it, and I just started playing the Thoros campaign for the expansion.
It is folly that we are ruled by a class of firstborns. Men whose sole claim to lordship is being first to crawl out of their mother's womb. Most of them do nothing but squander their opportunities. Sometimes it is a second son's duty to depose his incompetent brother and rule in his stead. I am one such man, and you, young squire, might one day become one as well. Yet even I do not compare to Thoros the Great. The second son of the Cilician Armenian king, Thoros supplanted his older brother and became the heir of his father's kingdom. Yet it was a frail inheritance, as the Byzantine Empire had its sights set on the realm. The Byzantines still nurtured the vain Roman dream of ruling all of the Mediterranean. And Cilician Armenia, weak and divided after years of internal strife, was an easy target. The Byzantines took the kingdom easily, and threw Thoros and his father into the deepest dungeon in Constantinople. It is said that the Cilician Armenian king was brutally executed on the emperor's orders. But Thoros was not his father. Using the charisma that the latter had sorely lacked, he managed to sway his captors into postponing his death. Some even whisper that Thoros seduced a Greek princess into helping him escape the prison and board a ship to Cilicia. Having met the persuasive man on a few occasions, I am inclined to believe that the stories are actually true. Now an outlaw with no following, Thoros found his homeland overrun and his family seat occupied by Byzantine forces. The once proud kingdom was in a sorry state, one which the landless prince was determined to change.
Victors and Vanquished is a single-player only expansion featuring 19 scenarios. Instead of full-length campaigns, each scenario is a campaign from a particular time period. It's like the Battle of the Conquerors from the Conquerors expansion, but much lengthier. Some of these scenarios were made by community members.
We struck with our swords. With that cry, silence fell over the feasting hall. The warriors squeezed drinking horns and dug their fingers white into the oaken tables. Their attention was on the Scald, the bard who had come from far northern lands. Even there they sang of the deeds of the dead king. We struck with our swords. The air had a tension, like a thread pulled from both ends. The words echoed off the shields and swords on the walls. They rang off the arm rings melted from golden relics and bejeweled chalices, plunder taken in raids that left trails of bodies and rising smoke before the Black Raven banner. We struck with our swords. The Scald rose and the warriors stood with him, horns and sword hilts in hand, spears raised and glistening as the flames danced shadows over their faces. The Skalds spoke of their king, and all knew the story well, for they too had sailed on the Great Whale Road and were as wolves engorging themselves on those foreign shores. We struck with our swords. The warriors beat their swords against oaken shield. It was a louder clamor than could be heard at the walls of Paris. The Skald needed not say another word, for his tale could be heard in that uproar. The clattering of strong warriors told the saga better than any mere words sung from a Skald's wet lips. For all knew the saga of Ragnar Lothbrok.
While not really anything new, I discovered my original copy of Age of Empires 2 on the Collector's Edition disc contained a custom scenario campaign. When I read more about it on the Age of Empires 2 wiki page, this campaign, 782 The Saxon Revolt, wasn't available anywhere else. The creator's own forum page didn't exist, and the other two pages that were linked on the wiki don't exist either. I decided to preserve this campaign and 3 other versions of the same campaign, but translated into a different language. I put the complete authentic original on ModDB, which will require you to own the Conquerors expansion. I even ported it to Age of Empires 2 HD and Defensive Edition. As of finishing this review, we have entered the year 2024, and it will be Age of Empires 2's 25th anniversary. But for me, it'll be my 18th year of playing Age of Empires 1 and 2. Age of Empires 2 has been one of those games where I can easily get into the zone and spend countless hours in the game without even noticing how long time has flown. I really like Age of Empires 2, and I think you will like it as well. Whether you are on PC or console, will you return to reign? I hope you have enjoyed my video on Age of Empires 2. If you want to see more videos from me, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, ring the bell, and comment what you liked about my video. Thank you, peace be with all of you.